All right, we are awaiting trading in Reddit. This company has been gearing up for an IPO for quite some time, but they finally got there, pricing their deal at the higher end of the range. That's kind of a Wall Street playbook thing, which is supposed to indicate strong demand for a listing. And the thing about this business is it's not a new one. It's been around since really almost 20 years, but at a time when there's a lot of interest in technology companies, I'm sure a lot of people are now, yes, interested in the IPO, but interested in what this business is all about. And there is an advertising component to it. They're talking about commerce and data licensing. They're talking about leveraging their own data in the AI world that's getting a lot of attention right now. But let's get some more perspective on all of this. Joining us with some insight and analysis on the story is Greg Martin. He's managing director at Rainmaker Securities. Joins us oftentimes for some of these big IPOs. Greg, nice to have you back with us. First of all, I guess big day for Reddit, but they've been trying to get this done, it feels like, for a very long time. Is that fair?
Well, John, thank you for having me. Good to see you again. Yeah, I mean, it's a company that's been around since 2005. So it's not a young company. It's one of the original gangsters of the social media world, and they filed in late 21. Trying to go public in early 2022. So this is really 2 years in the making from an IPO perspective, but a lot longer in the making from a company building perspective. And listen, I think it's time. I think they've reached a scale. I think that their investors need to monetize, and now's a really good time to go public. The market is incredibly buoyant. We're reaching all-time highs. We've got positive signals, from interest rates yesterday from Jay Powell, and and we saw a very successful roadshow. So I think it is a good time, and I think it is time for Reddit to be a public company.
I've covered so many of these IPO stories, and the mechanics of a business getting to the public markets is very interesting, and it's informative, and certainly getting a sense on what the company is looking to do as a public company is also important. But at the end of the day, great for the people behind the business to get to this point, but we're an investing channel. What are going to be the biggest questions that new investors have for the story of Reddit as a public business?
Yeah, well, listen, I think the company really priced to perfection. I mean, they are trading, they price at $34 a share, which values the company at about $6.5 billion. If you think about that as a multiple of revenue, which, is how their comp set, which I would consider to be Pinterest and Snap, that's about an 8 times multiple on the $800 million of revenue that they did, in 2023, which really wasn't an amazing growing story. It was sort of a 20% growing story, whereas their comp set trades, Pinterest, which is probably their closest comp, trades at closer to 6.9 times, and Snapchat, has traded off, trades closer to 4 times. So it's a pretty lofty multiple that they're currently trading at. So I think you have to approach it with caution. If you look at the company, 98% of the advertising revenue in Q4, 98% of the revenue in Q4 was advertising. And so I think they have done a really good job of pitching the AI story that you discussed. And I think you have to question whether that AI story can build enough scale to drive a multiple that could sustain these price levels. So I think an investor should approach this one with caution, because it's already priced very high.
So they have a deal, I believe, with Alphabet, which is on the front lines of the AI revolution. And I think they've talked about content in a user's feed being something that is valuable within this AI world, which sounds exciting, but I do have some concern about if everybody's an AI company, well, then should we really be talking about AI as sort of a defining feature, or is it just sort of a feature like anything? So again, with something like AI, if you were watching the roadshow, did you hear anything about what people were really interested in the AI story of Reddit, which again is a company that's been around for so long already?
Yeah, listen, I think Reddit does have something unique. They have proprietary content. They have 100,000, communities contributing content on various interests, whether it's cars or stocks, so there's a lot of content that's being created. It ends up being high quality content because it's heavily curated through the wisdom of crowds. And so I think there is something there from a data asset perspective. Google is paying them something like 60 plus million a year for access to this data, using it not only to improve their search, but to also enhance the training of their LLMs. There's a question of sort of once you train the LLM one time on all that past data, how much future revenue you're going to have. But I do think there's some kernel of an AI story. But even at 60 million, if you think they're going to do $1 billion of revenue this year, it's still 6% of revenue. It's still a very tiny component of their business, and I'm not sure how big that ultimately can become. Obviously, Google would be maybe one of your biggest customers that you could ever have. So I think it's a little bit more smoke and mirrors than a real story, but it's more than I've seen with other people. I mean, everyone is hand waving about AI to boost their valuation right now. At least Reddit has real revenue that is coming from it, and it's as a data asset, it's 100% margin business pretty much, and it's unique and proprietary to them. So they're going to have to really show in their forthcoming earnings reports that they actually have room to grow that business, or else it will be discounted, and I think that their stock will be challenged.